Welcome, dear students. In the current session, we will talk about the footsteps of Italy and France that were followed by England. I hope and expect that by the end of the session, you would be able to understand how the precedence of Italy and France was used as an example and it was followed later on by the English people. Well, my dear students, during the 18th century, the people who were concerned with language, they identified a threefold problem. The problem that was related to standardization of language, refining it, and fixing it. First to give it a format, a standard, then to refine, to remove impurities, to fit it into that standard, and once it is purified and it is all set, to fix it permanently. These were the three problems that were identified. Now, after the identification of the problems, the question was how to resolve them. The people who identified these problems, of course, they tried to find out the solutions. And for that, they looked around. And what they looked at was what had been done in this direction by other countries. So they tried to see what was happening in other countries regarding, the purification of language. Well, my dear students, when we trace the history of England, and when we trace the history of the whole Europe, in fact, we always find Italy and France as sources of inspiration. They had been sources of inspiration for fashion, for culture, and for language in so many ways in the past history of the English language as well. Once again, both of these lands, they were looked at as an inspiration. And what was noticed was that in both of these lands, the destiny of the language was confined to an academy. They had set an academy, to take care of the issues and problems regarding language. Coming towards Italy, the most famous was the Accademia della Crusca that was founded in 1582. Its main object was to purify the Italian language. And in fact, in its endeavors to do so, it published a dictionary in 1612 that became very, very popular and famous. The dictionary provoked a lot of controversies because, it pointed out certain things that were controversial, that did not have, a settled fate, I would say. So the dictionary was revised several times, and the dictionary also got a lot of popularity. So its third edition that was published in 1691, it was of 3 volumes. But that was not the end of it. Its 4th volume that was published in 1729 and 1738, it had 6 volumes. So from this you can understand the significance that was attached to it. Now, the speakers of English, those who were concerned about the English language, they took it as an impressive example. Perhaps an even more effective precedent was furnished by France. So not only Italy, but also France had something to offer as a precedence, as a sample, or as a model. And actually it was in 1635 that Cardinal Richelieu offered a royal charter to a small group of men who would meet for several years, almost for, such a long time, almost every week, and would talk about books and would talk about literature and would exchange their views on that. The original group was a very small group of 6 to 8 people. However, later on, its membership, grew, and there were, approximately 40 people who were a part of it. It was the group later on that was formally called French Academy. Well, my dear students, what was the purpose of this academy? The major aim or the principal function of the academy as it was mentioned, was, shall be to labor with all possible care and diligence to give definite rules to our language, and to render it pure, eloquent, and capable of treating the arts and sciences. So, almost the same process that happened in Italy. Though the source was slightly different, the channel was slightly different, but the purpose was the same. And the same at the other end, the other extreme, what England wanted. French, academy was yet another possibility of doing all that. So mainly there were three aims of this academy. The first one was to cleanse the language of impurities, both in spoken as well as in written language. The second purpose was to establish a certain usage of words. People would use a word in so many different ways. And, the purpose of the academy was to determine the right use and to distinguish it from the wrong one. The third purpose, the third aim of the academy was to compile a dictionary, a grammar, a rhetoric, and a treatise on the art of poetry. Well, the dictionary was the most important target or the project that this academy had. The work proceeded very slowly. There were a lot of changes in editors. People kept on coming in and going out of, this. It took actually years after years. Finally, in 1694, it appeared on the scene. So, my dear students, overall what I would say about, following the footsteps of Italy and France, I would just say that Italy and France had gone through certain processes of standardizing their languages, and the English people, now that they were still in that chaos, how to handle this situation, they decided to follow in the footsteps of, to follow the example of Italy and France.